Ben, and thank you to each of you for registering for this important topic today. Um, as Ben mentioned, the registration was very impressive, and we feel that this really speaks to the need for discussing the work-life balance in this hybrid or virtual world that we have all found ourselves in. And we have pulled together an incredible panel of speakers to talk to you today about this topic. We have limited the chat so that you can only post questions to everyone or to specific speakers. We're going to let each of our speakers present and then save the Q&A for following the last presentation right before Cindy does present a mindfulness presentation. We also will follow up with you with an excellent PDF that was put together by Chris Hellstrom of Monmouth University and our committee to help you further with additional resources in our community. So I would now like to introduce Dr. Stephen Carries. He is the chairman of pediatrics at Hackensack Meridian School of Health. He's a pediatrician with specialty boards in child abuse and also in adolescent medicine. He oversees the Child Protection Center at Jersey Shore University Medical Center that provides medical evaluations in Monmouth and Ocean counties. Dr. Carries also has an MPH from Boston University and is the co-PI for the statewide Pediatric Psychiatry Collaborative. He is also the principal investigator for the Even Year Integrated Care for Kids project at the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Innovation that helps out Monmouth and Ocean counties as the target for the transformation of care for children receiving Medicaid. And so, Dr. Carries, I would now invite you to share your screen and present. Thank you.
So, Dawn, can everybody hear me? Can you all hear me? Yes, you can hear me? Yep. Okay, thank you. So thanks. Thank you for allowing me to participate. What I'm hoping to do is present one project that's currently going on and another one that's just starting out to give you some sense of some of the ways that at least we in the medical community are trying to address some of these issues. There's no question that the virus has greatly increased the amount of anxiety, depression, family stress that's occurring. You see it all in your own personal lives as well as you see it in the lives of the families and the children that you're involved with. So I want to take about 10 minutes to just present these two projects. The first is the Pediatric Psychiatry Collaborative, and it's really based on the fact that we've always known that mental health is a big issue for children, not just because it's so prevalent, but also because it has such functional impairment. Reality is that even many of the adult issues with mental illness begin in childhood, in addition to the usual stresses and the anxieties that affect kids, with anxiety being probably the most common issue that confronts kids. As you know, suicide is a huge issue, and it's become increasingly an issue, particularly during this COVID era, with in many states showing much higher rates of attempted and accomplished suicide, particularly with obviously with adolescents and their impulsivity and difficulties in stepping back from their emotions. There's a lot of gaps in how we provide mental health services. As you know, there's very few child psychiatrists. Most of them don't take insurance. Most pediatricians don't know really where to go when mental health issues come up. They don't know who to use. Even when they find somebody with mental health problems, most of the time they don't know what to do with it. And most families never really connect with somebody when they are having issues. So the gaps are always been known and are quite prevalent nationwide, not just in New Jersey. There's very few child adolescent psychiatrists in New Jersey. And most of them, as I said, don't take insurance. So except for the community mental health system, there's not a lot of access to care. Most pediatricians are very uncomfortable taking care of mental health issues, and they don't get paid for it. And so there's a huge delay between onset of symptoms and intervention, which is really one of the reasons we're starting this program that I'm going to just want to describe to you. So So we started this about 7 years ago. It's now statewide. It's called the Pediatric Psychiatry Collaborative. And the goal is to get primary care pediatricians and especially pediatricians to actually regularly use evidence-based tools to screen for mental health issues and substance abuse as part of what they do for their regular care of children in their practices. And then to allow them to have another group of folks that works with them and works with their families to get the kind of care that they need, including access to psychiatry. And lastly, the goal is to keep the pediatricians in the loop so that right now, when you send someone to psychology or to community health centers, rarely does the pediatrician know what's going on or stay involved or connected with the care to try to make it more holistic. So as I said, the whole state is covered now. We have connections with Cooper, Atlantic, St. Joe's, Essex County with Barnabas, and a very, very active hub in Monmouth, Notion County. It was really the first hub. It's all been supported in Monmouth, Notion County by Hackensack Reading with money that comes from the state government actually, and it's overseen by the Department of Children and Families. So it's been a statewide system for the last 3 years after taking some time to get it organized. And again, we think it's a wonderful service, not just for pediatricians, but particularly for families and for all of you to know about, so that any child that is screens positive on some of the screening tools can automatically be referred to one of these hubs. The hubs have social workers and psychiatrists available to work with the families and also to work with the pediatrician. And if the child needs additional clarification about what's going on, the child psychiatrist will see that child for free for 1 or 2 or 3 times to try to clarify diagnosis and to develop a care plan. So it's a very, very effective model. The psychiatrist works with the primary care doctor or the specialist to make sure they're kept in the loop. All that information is communicated back and forth, so that it's a much more collaborative approach with a lot of transparency about what happens. A lot of educational opportunities to grow the capacity of physicians and nurse practitioners to be more confident, have more confidence, more confidence in dealing with some of these basic issues, including being care manager for some of these things. So we use these various screening tools. They're all evidence-based. There's a screening tool for 0 to 5 called the Survey of Wellbeing of Young Children. It's a free screening tool. You can look it up on the internet and Google it. The Pediatric Symptom Checklist, which has a couple of questions now for suicide built into it, and then for substance abuse, what's called the CRAFT, which is a screening tool for looking for kids that are beginning to show dependency towards alcohol and drug use. And as I said, there's a lot of web there. And the connection with the psychiatrist is these days virtual. You don't have to have the families trek over to some psychiatry office 15 miles away. It's all done electronically, either in a doctor's office or in the home of the family. So it's I think the system is working better and better. There's a 24/7 hotline for doctors to call if it gets to be an issue for them. So now we have about 600 doctors involved. We've screened about 150,000 kids with a lot of referrals. A lot of referrals are not for medication, which is one of the concerns early on. There are some medications used, but most of the referrals are for connecting to parent education, community referrals to the CMOs, et cetera, for next steps. So it's been very well received. People seem to really like, doctors love it to have actually a support for their kids that show up. The parents seem to like it a lot, and we keep trying to get better and better with how we do this. So I can answer your questions later, but that's the Pediatric Psychiatry Collaborative. This is a program that started in Massachusetts about 20 years ago. About 25 states now have a similar kind of a program. The other program I wanted to talk about is still in development, but in my mind has some tremendous possibilities. Again, this is a program that comes out of the federal government, out of the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Innovation. And it's using a model that they developed, this integrated care for kids model. I'll explain it to you. But it's a 7-year time frame for seeing if this is actually going to work. and the 7 years are going to be completely in Monmouth and Ocean County. So we're going to be the focus for this particular project. And it's all based on the fact that kids, particularly young kids, spend so much of their lives in poverty. I think this is nothing new to anybody, but you can see that if it's for poverty is particularly high in the 0 to 5 age range. It goes down a little bit as you get older, but over half the kids in Monmouth and Ocean County live in either in poverty or close to poverty. Affects obviously every aspect of their lives. In New Jersey, the data is pretty similar to the national data. Obviously, families of diversity, Hispanic and African American families have more poverty than do white families, and certainly with that comes less health care or poorer health care. Infant mortality is 4 times higher in African American babies as compared to white babies in New Jersey. There's a lot of kids that need services. We just don't have the funding right now for it. For example, there's 300,000 kids that could use home visiting services, but very few funded slots for that. As you know, that even decent child care on average costs probably $16,000 or more. Most families don't have the capacity to pay that. So either, particularly in the COVID era, they're particularly stuck now with having to figure out how they're going to survive financially, take care of their children, take care of their children's educational needs, etc. Trying to juggle all those balls at the same time makes it very complicated. New Jersey it's even though poverty is pretty universal in New Jersey, it's in terms of diversities, it's quite different. So that if you're a family living in Hudson County or Essex County, the majority of families are families of color and diversity, whereas Ocean County, for example, is one of the more basically less diverse counties. Monmouth County is a little bit higher up, but there you can see that New Jersey is quite diverse itself in terms of minority pieces and how that connects to what we're talking about. So this model, as I said, started in it's a federal model. There's 7 other states that are trying out this model. It's really based on the fact that right now in New Jersey, Medicaid is a major insurer for children. Over 50% of kids in New Jersey are on Medicaid or on the child health improvement rolls, so that it's a primary insurer of kids, and yet it hasn't changed much over the last 25 years or so in terms of either the kind of services it pays for or the kind of support it provides to primary care or especially doctors. Just because you have a Medicaid card doesn't mean you can have access to services. I think you all know that very well. A lot of, for example, child psychiatry won't take any insurance. I don't think there's ophthalmology, surgery in particular is not particularly interested in Medicaid coverage. So there's tremendous gaps in care, in part because of the way Medicaid is structured. EPSCT stands for Early Periodic Diagnostic Screening, and it's a kind of well child care for kids on Medicaid. And it's really important because if something gets uncovered during one of those visits, then Medicaid has to pay for it. But about only 50 or 60% of kids, particularly older kids, even come in for their regular EPSCT visits. So a lot of kids are left out there hanging. We know that at least a third of the kids in Medicaid have some major behavior or mental health issue that affects their function either at home or in school or with their peers. And just as we talked about already, this late diagnosis and lack of care management just increases the risk of being separated from their families, either foster care, multiple hospitalizations, multiple ED visits, etc. So it's a kind of a never-ending recycling of the issues. So what this model hopes to do is to try to transform that, to try to get all kids who are on Medicaid to come in regularly for early identification and treatment, to have a much better system of being able to care coordinate and care manage, and have the community services like your services connect and integrate with families and with the healthcare system, so that we're actually working together, all on the same boat, working to grow uphill and to try to improve the quality of care for kids. And that the state has a different payment model to pay for this. As I said, right now the payment model is through 5 managed care Medicaid companies, and it's mostly all fee for service. It's all paying for widgets. Nobody's really looking at the bigger picture or the bigger way that we can work together to try to improve the quality of care for kids. So there's 7 other states involved. It's a 7-year grant. There's about 120,000 kids. 80,000 live in Ocean County, actually 40,000 in Monmouth County that are on Medicaid or CHIP. A couple of counties are acting as controls, and there's a number of agencies, including the VNA and Medicaid itself, is at the table with us to try to make these kind of changes. We're not just looking at medical complexity or behavioral complexity. We're all now, I think probably for the first time, looking at social complexity. So when we are seeing these kids, we want to be able to understand their social needs, whether it's around food, homelessness, ability to deal with the English literacy issues, immigration issues, family dysfunction issues. Because as you all know, these are really the big factors that determine whether or not you're going to be able actually to handle your medical issues or your behavioral issues. So these are your background foundational issues. So we expect to be able to touch every 120,000 children when this project starts. We have another year of planning. The project kicks off January of 2022, and we have 5 years after that to show that we can actually make a difference. And we're going to be looking at screening kids, as I said, for behavioral health, for medical health, as well as for trauma and for social determinants. So when these kids are seen, we're hoping to look at all those different domains and get a better understanding of how they're doing and how their families are doing. And those kids that need more services because they have either medical complexity or behavioral complexity or social complexity will have the connection to what's going to be developed with what we're calling advanced care management teams with child health workers, social workers, et cetera, working in the community with you all and also working with the families and the physicians to try to connect the dots. That's why it's called integrated care for kids, trying to make this work. And there's Medicaid is going to be paying for this with a whole different model, a alternative payment model that will actually pay for the screening and pay for the care management. Currently, they do neither of those. So this is a big step forward. And Medicaid has said if this works, they're going to make this a statewide model. So these teams are going to be community health workers coming from your community, people that speak, come from the same culture and the same language background as the people that they're serving. Social workers overseeing it. Also really trying to work to not duplicate or be redundant. So it's really important for us that if we're involved with families that we know and work with everybody else that's involved with that family. So we're not going across purposes, we're not giving different messages, we're connecting the family. And again, as I said, trying to integrate care as it works. And we're also, we have a partnership council that's working with us. It's been meeting for a while. All these different agencies, many of the agencies on the call today are part of the council. We're working to make this a connected system so that all these core child services are part of the process and are adding their thoughts and ideas to this. And we're using a fair amount of money for the model to try to have the data that comes out of these agencies connected with a community-based platform. So if you're involved with a family, you can plug into the platform and know what's happening in the schools, know what's happening with their IEP, know what's happening with absenteeism rates, know what's happening with early child care and WIC and early intervention, et cetera, with the CMOs. So we're actually becoming an integrated care delivery system, working together and sharing together across the board. So that's the hope of the project. Well, you know, it's quite ambitious for sure, but I'm hoping we can get a lot done. I'm hoping the state sees this as a way forward for how kids, all kids should be cared for, particularly kids in poverty. So I'll stop there and turn it back to Dawn.
Thank you, Dr. Carey. So we really appreciate all of that information. Would you mind putting your contact information in the chat if anyone does have
Sure,
direct questions to follow up with you? And
sure.
again, just to really wrap it up, these programs are so important for our community, but also for your employees, because from some of the questions that had come in through registration, we do recognize that many people are worried about their children and the impact of the pandemic and the hybrid schooling. And so that is why we had invited the doctor to come speak about some of these programs so that you know for yourselves and also your employees. We now would like to introduce Amanda Mullen. She is the Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer for New Jersey Resources. Miss Mullen joined New Jersey Resources in April of 2015 as Chief Human Resources Officer. She's responsible for designing and managing NJR's programs and strategies to maximize the potential of its workforce, including labor and employee relations, team building and training, strategic workforce planning, and compensation and benefits initiative. Prior to joining NJR, Ms. Mullen served as Director and Senior Vice President of Human Resources in North America for Willis Group Holdings, a leading global risk advisor, insurance, and reinsurance broker. Ms. Mullen holds a Master's of Business Administration from Rider University and a Bachelor of Science from the University of Delaware. She is certified as a Senior Professional in Human Resources and holds a Society of Human Resources Management Senior Certified Professional designation. She currently serves as a member of the 180 Turning Lives Around Board of Trustees, New Jersey Salvation Army Advisory Board, and Ocean First Bank Advisory Board, as well as a member of the Human Resources Policy Association, American Gas Association, and New Jersey Utility Association. She is the Executive Fellow for Rider University's Center for Development of Leadership Skills and serves on the university's Women's Leadership Council. Amanda, if you can please share your wisdom.
Thanks. That makes me sound way more important than I really am. And before I share my screen, I was in a complete panic in this hybrid workplace because my lawn mower people just showed up right outside my window and were blowing leaves to the point where I could barely hear. And I was in a complete panic. So this is our new world and part of what I will be talking about. But I'm going to share my screen right now. I believe you will be able to see this because we practiced earlier. And I'm going to take you through a little bit of what New Jersey Resources has done in response to this never before seen pandemic, at least not in my lifetime. So let's see. Before we start, I just wanted to, for those of you who aren't familiar with New Jersey Resources, here's a little bit of a background of who we are. Most of you know us as New Jersey Natural Gas, which is really our core business that provides safe and reliable natural gas to the customers we serve across 5 counties in Monmouth, Ocean, parts of Morris, Middlesex, and Burlington counties. But we also have these other businesses like Clean Energy Ventures, which does commercial and residential solar, Energy Services, which does trading of energy across the US, our midstream organization, which stores and transports gas across North America, and then Home Services, which provides contract assistance with respect to HVAC, water heaters, etc. For those of you that are interested, this is our footprint in blue. We've been in business for over 70 years, serve over 500,000 customers in the counties, and we run and maintain about 7,500 miles of distribution and transmission pipeline across the territories we serve. And we are very proud that we are continually recognized by J.D. Powers for the highest level of customer service in the East among large utilities. I feel like I could speak forever on COVID-19, but I promise you that I won't. We have spent a significant amount of time ensuring that we keep our employees and our customers safe. That is our top priority. We spent a lot of time speaking as a business continuity team about what are the latest guidelines from the CDC, from the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Texas, Mississippi. The various states each have their own executive orders and protocols that we need to make sure that we follow. And as you know, we have essential workers in the field keeping our customers online with heat in a safe, no leak environment. And we need to make sure that we can keep them safe. So we have basically moved all of our non-essential work remote. I thought it would be good to talk a little bit about some of what we've done. So since really March 13th, which I believe was a Friday the 13th, we moved all of our non-essential workers to a remote environment. We remain that way at least through the end of the year, and likely will extend that into the spring of next year, especially given the peak of COVID right now. And we've also moved some of our essential work. For the first time in the history of the company, our call center and our dispatch are now have the capability of working remote. We've moved some of our dispatchers, who are the ones who take the incoming calls and assign the work to our field essential workers, to go out if there's a leak or any gas concern. But our call center remains remote, which will help us well into the future. Because it's not something in snow or in hurricanes or anything we've had capable in the past. And now we are able to have that wonderful business continuity effort that we've never had in the past. We've also done a lot. You can hear my lawn coming in. Hopefully it's not too bad. We've provided a lot of information for our employees on a one-stop intranet site where they can go and basically get any information they know about our response to COVID, how they can get help, how they can connect with each other, what the executive orders are, links to various Q&As with respect to what that means for them. And we also have a rapid response team. So even today, we have employees that are indicating that they've been exposed to COVID, or a family member has tested positive. I'll talk a little bit about the process we have in place for that. But we have a rapid response team that's working basically 24/7, taking calls from employees who have an exposure and working with our medical review officer to determine whether or not they can come into the office, to do contact tracing for other individuals that may have been exposed to them. And so far, we've been very successful at mitigating the concerns and the exposures in the locations where we do have essential workers. One of the questions that was asked was, how do we communicate? So we believe that communication is critical. We have an open door policy. I get text messages and phone calls all day long from employees and managers asking for information. You can see here we have an employee resource page. We call it our COVID-19 intranet page that has a lot of information and resources and links to both state and CDC guidelines. We've set up a COVID-19 email and hotline where people can call and ask questions or raise concerns. And we've done a number of all company calls with both our CEO, Steve Westhoven, and myself, talking through various issues from how to better connect with each other, to how to effectively work from home, how to stay connected with each other. And then we've also encouraged our leaders to continue to hold one-on-one meetings, which we saw at the very beginning seemed to lag a little bit, the manager-employee communications in the virtual world. I think some of the team meetings and one-on-one meetings were the first things that went, and we needed to bring them back and help our leaders understand it was still important to interact on a regular basis with their teams. So one of the things that we've been working hard on is maintaining morale. There's this perception, and it starts at the top of our organization, that if you're at home, you're not working. So we've had a little bit of that in the field with our field employees who are, showing up every day to the office, into, the areas where they're not even going into the office. They're just coming in and getting their assigned work and equipment. They feel that they don't see the non-essential workers, so they must not be working. So we've had to address that and make sure that all of our employees, whether they're located in an office or working virtually, everybody knows that everybody's working and highly effective. We've definitely had some mental fatigue with our parents who are home teaching with school-age kids. That's difficult to balance, and we've tried to maintain flexible schedules for people who needed, that have a kindergartner that has to be online virtually, that really can't do that on their own. We've moved some schedules around for people so that they have the opportunity to provide that assistant when their kids are home versus hybrid in school. And we've had some people that can't work effectively from home that we've brought back into the office in a safe way so that they can work from the office in a safe environment, because they know they can't be productive in home. Either there's, not enough space, there's too many people, a whole slew of reasons. And we've also implemented some new leave of absence programs to allow for emergency child care needs, and providing additional child care, especially to the families that have a first responder, nurse, or medical practitioner that needs to be on call basically 24/7 to respond to the COVID situation. And therefore, our worker is the primary caregiver at home. We've put in some leave programs for that. We continue to promote wellness through our employee assistance program. We offer a lot of information through that program, which is available online. They run a lot of virtual training sessions. And as a result of all of this, we've actually been very fortunate to maintain strong productivity and achieve our goals. We haven't had to furlough or lay employees off. We've been very lucky to continue to perform well as an organization despite this pandemic. Here are some tools that we use to stay connected. Team and Zoom have become key to our culture. I feel like I'm on Team or Zoom calls all day long sometimes. I did my hair and put my makeup on this morning for you, but normally I'm in a ponytail with no makeup, and it's a new way of working that all of my coworkers are now just getting used to, the fact that they get to see us at our best and at our worst. We've done a few surveys. We're about to launch another one to get information from our employees to check in on how they're doing. We do feel that people are a little mentally exhausted from staying at home, and we want to check in and see what they need and what else we can do. We've, like many, implemented some better access to telemedicine and tried to be creative in offering like a drive-through flu shot for our employees, because we want to make sure that, especially in this year, in this environment, that people are continuing to get their flu shots. And then we've done some mental health seminars. We've had some mindfulness, as we'll hear later on today, seminars, some meditation seminars, just breaks to give people a chance to relax during the day. And then we continue to work on our learning and development program by offering mentoring circles and other training online. We're now, moving into the phase where we're really spending a lot of time on what it's going to look like when we return people to the office. Most of you are fully aware of the New Jersey's Executive Order 192, which lays out the groundwork for doing that. Fortunately, we had already implemented a number of plans and were prepared for that executive order. We issued a playbook to all of our employees about what it will be like in the new world when they return. We implemented Buoy Back with Care, which is, I call it an app. It's not really an app, but it's a link on anybody's smartphone that they fill out a health assessment, and it gives you basically a red light or a green light to come into our office, and they have to show that at the door. If they get a red light, they contact a hotline, and then we do additional, like a secondary level review, and review it with our medical review officer before we let them come into the office. And it also outlines everything we've done to prepare our facilities for the eventual return to the workplace. All of that is great, but none of it would work without very strong leaders, which we're fortunate to have at New Jersey Resources. They know that the health and safety of our workers is more important than anything. And the health and safety of our customers is extremely important, more important than anything. And we constantly stay connected to our workforce to understand what's going on in their minds, what they need, what we might be able to do to stay more connected. And we're working hard to be as proactive in this environment that we possibly can. It's new and it's not easy, but I think that we've risen to the occasion at New Jersey Resources and done a really good job. We'll see, because we're about to survey all of our employees to get an understanding of what they need more or less of, and how we might be able to make them feel more comfortable when we do ultimately gradually bring people back into the workforce. I thought it might be helpful. Here's some online tools that we've used and given to our employees. I can make these available, Dawn, if you would like. There's a lot of resources out there for how you can help your students at home while you're trying to work. Different informations about how you can adjust in this economy, in this work. So I thought I would provide that for you. And thank you. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Amanda, thank you so much. That was a really robust presentation. Truly speaks to New Jersey Resources as being a model in the community, and having the openness and communicating with your staff and providing so many of those tools and resources, many of which all of us can integrate into our businesses and organizations of any size. Amanda did speak of their employee assistance program, which is a wonderful segue for my introduction to Tracy Kaplan. She is the Director of Employee Assistance Programs for Preferred Behavioral Health Group. Ms. Kaplan is the director. She assists over 10,000 covered lives. She received her MSW at Fordham University in New York City in 1999, as well as her LCSW in 2001, and her MBA at Monmouth University. Ms. Kaplan has been in the EAP field for approximately 20 years, working for national and international EAPs. Ms. Kaplan was very involved in the debriefing during 9/11, bank robberies, suicides, and sudden and tragic employee deaths. The focus of her work is on management consultation, critical response, SAP for DOT, and supervisory referrals. Tracy, we invite you to present. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my virtual home office. I am with Preferred Behavioral Healthcare, which is the mental health center for Ocean County. We have a number of and resources we can offer out to Ocean and Monmouth County residents. I just want to highlight, in terms of talking about, I'm going to get into EAP related work, but when we were talking about children and their care, and for those employees that might be out there and managers that are struggling, there is a great resource called Perform Care. That is an 800 number that any parent can reach out if their children are struggling severely with anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. I just felt it was important I put that key piece out there, that you please get that phone number. And if you don't have it, I am happy to share it with you at some point. So that being said, I'm going to try and stick to my time frame as we're running close on time. The training that I am about to share with you, and I'm going to share my screen, is normally a training I do in about an hour. So I've hacked it 100 times, and I'm just going to highlight over a few things. Mainly, I want to give you tools. So I'm not going to go into all the stats and all that fun stuff, but mainly what we're dealing with a lot is stress. You're dealing with the stress that people are seeing that is over the top, like we've never seen before. And stress is usually a good thing at average levels that we can handle, but at this point, people are getting to a point where they're getting overdrawn with stress. One of the main concepts that we want to talk about is the concept of bookends. Usually our stress that we've dealt with, if we're talking about a hurricane or some type of situation where you've got a beginning and you've got an end. And what we have right now with the pandemic is an unknown end. So we don't know when the end is coming, when we will ever get back to normal, if we will ever get back to normal, and whatever normal is going to look like. So that's what's causing a lot of the fatigue, the Zoom fatigue, and the COVID that we're all feeling, because we just don't know when the end is coming.
The consumers that the provider space
Is someone,
is safe. Those are.
are you guys hearing me okay, or is there feedback? Okay, there we go, sorry. So again, with regards to stress, this is the performance stress curve that basically shows you that stress can have a negative impact on our functioning, and to know where your stress levels, where you fall with, you can start to have a breakdown. Task saturation is one of the key terms that people are struggling with. And it's doing too much with not enough time, not enough tools, and not enough resources. Now it's called Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So what I'd like you to think of when you think of task saturation is, think of it like a sponge. And you're filling it with water and filling it with water, and eventually the sponge can't take anymore, and the water's just going to overflow on your sponge. And that's what we're looking at with task saturation. And when you see task saturation, a couple different things will happen. One is that you're going to start shutting down. Your employees are just going to start shutting down and not performing. Then they're going to have cognitive lock-in, which is where they get stuck in one thing they're doing and they can't seem to move past it. And you're going to witness maybe one of your employees can't seem to get past doing this one thing because they can't move past it. Then you're going to move into target fixation, where that's basically the same thing as not getting past their first decision, but it's going to be on focusing on just one thing within what they have to do, and they just can't move past any of it. And then you're getting into channelizing. And the best way for me to explain this is, think of rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. They just keep redoing the same thing and they're going to get no result out of it because the end result is not going to be good. So these are signs that you're going to look for with your task saturation. Operational stress control. Main thing is, we need leaders to understand what's going on with their workers. That you're going to look for, what are the causes of stress in your employees? What are the effects of their performance? What are the warning signs of extreme stress, and how to manage some of these stressors? So I'm going to get into some of the stuff that's out there. That there were some questions that were submitted, and I want to try and answer some of those questions for you. So one of the things is, we work with people, and as supervisors and managers, you might need this yourself. There are some great apps out there. You need to learn to breathe. And I know today I'm rushing through things and I don't feel like I'm breathing. But there's an app out there, Tactical Breather. It will actually walk you through some deep breathing exercises. So if you are someone that's prone to anxiety, or you have a child who's struggling with anxiety, this can be a great resource to utilize with them or with yourself to learn how to do some of this breathing. What we're looking at, and I'm going to talk about kind of what EAP is seeing as well, but when to seek professional help is when you see someone getting disoriented, obviously suicidal or homicidal thoughts, anxiety that's causing panic attacks, the inability to care for themselves, problem with drug or alcohol use, or you're seeing uncharacteristic behavior in some of your employees. Again, I'm not going to go through all these, but just encourage people to seek help. We are an employee assistance program that offers resources to your staff and your staff's family members. So when you have an EAP, and some of you may have an EAP, definitely utilize it, encourage staff to utilize it. If nothing else, talk to them about the confidentiality about an EAP. A lot of people sometimes are afraid to reach out to their EAP because they think the information is going to get back to their company. So please encourage and also emphasize the confidentiality piece. Some of the things that, I'm going to get into self-care, but some of the things that I'm seeing in the EAP that's been coming our way is, and obviously as you can imagine, an increased substance use. I do DOT SAP assessments, which are for CDL drivers that are returning, that need to be returned to work after they failed their drug test. I have seen at least an 80% increase in the SAP assessments that I've been doing, that I normally I'd get maybe 6, 7 a month. I think this month alone, I'm up to 17 of them. So that's a huge increase. And what's happening is the people that are now coming back to work had been using while they were home on lockdown. And we're seeing them come back now with substance abuse issues. So we're dealing with some of those concerns. I'm seeing an increase in a call for anxiety. Some people are very anxious about wearing masks, about being near people, dealing with touching, different environments. So this is some of the increase that I'm seeing. Burnout, the Zoom fatigue. The other thing would be isolation. People that live alone that now are stuck not seeing anybody and are your workers, they enjoy the face-to-face contact that some of these Zoom calls make, so it does help them. So these are some of the things that I'm seeing in the EAP. With regards to self-care, I know a lot of you know this stuff. I just put it up here. I wanted you to be able to read through some of it. We know what we need to do. It's just about being mindful that we need to do it. So this is some of the things. You know, I don't want to read through all this, but you can look at some of these, see what you need to do. One of the big things is work on controlling what we can control. And know that it's okay to not be okay. And a lot of us are feeling that way. And I'd like you to just, you know, take a deep breath and realize some of this. But these are some of the self-care techniques that you can look through. Another one that people don't pay attention to, but keep your medical appointments. One of the biggest things we saw with COVID is people weren't going because they were afraid, and we're finding more and more increased issues with their medical concerns. So please make sure now you are going to your medical appointments. It's an important piece of self-care. So some updates since April that I want to add to you in dealing with some things that you can try and do with your employees. Managing the workplace isolation, because everyone's in their own silos working at home, is encourage people to take walk breaks. Maybe do a meeting. I mean, it's getting cold now. When I offered this training, it was, you know, October and we had a 70-degree weekend weather. Today's a little colder. But do a walk if any of your employees want to go for a walk, and do your meeting while you're walking. It might be a good thing. Actually schedule with some of your staff a Zoom or if you want to, a FaceTime break, rather than just call them to have a meeting. Get everyone on the line and do something silly like play headbands, or get a TED talk that is comical and have them sit and listen to it, and then, you know, all tell a joke or something. Instead of just doing meetings, make it a little more fun. If you are in person, just like the schools, offer mask breaks. Maybe all go out, do a mask break. I loved this idea. I thought it was hysterical. I actually got this, ironically, from my temple. They mailed us a tea bag. And they said, sit back, relax, have a cup of tea, and we're going to listen to a comedian for a half hour. I'm not saying you're going to do a half hour with your staff, but you know what? Maybe a nice little card for your staff with a tea bag in it, and schedule a time to say, or do a progressive meditation or something along those lines. But it's taking that next step to feel connected to your staff. Sponsor some wellness activities. If you're capable of it, maybe get a gift card or offer, if allowed, some time off. Do a recipe war. Everyone has to submit a recipe and present it on a Zoom call. Do a water challenge, everyone in the morning. This way with hydration, everyone needs to be drinking, you know, everyone takes a picture, sends them their water, and then at the end of the day, takes another picture, shows them their water. Another fun one would be, you know, finding the strangest fruit and doing a fruit taste test virtually. Just some fun things so people can feel connected. One of the things that we had done at Preferred, because I'm the internal EAP, is we presented, you know, an all-encompassing meeting for the whole staff to come on board. And what I found was so interesting is that just to talk, the staff that were by themselves were so grateful to have the opportunity just to sit in front of us and just talk, see other people that were from the organization. They enjoyed that. One of the things as an EAP that we offer is a great work-life wellness center. You know, I would like to share, if anyone is interested and would like to get some information, I have this great 42-page document I'm willing to share about resuming to school during COVID-19. Has some phenomenal information about dealing with that. Every week, what I was doing during the height of the pandemic, I was getting resources sent out to all of our staff that included these different handouts, worksheets, and we did these webinars that were available to the staff as needed, different topics. We had a mindfulness awareness that you could log on and do a 10-minute meditation. And if you don't have an EAP, I strongly encourage you to look into one, because they can provide you all these resources rather than you having to figure them out themselves. And part of what I would do with sending these out to all my HR people was I would send memes with them. Appropriate memes, but I would send them to all our email, and it would usually be on a Friday, and people would actually, I would get probably, we have 433 people, I believe, as our employees at Preferred. I would get at least 50 to 60 emails back saying, thank you, this made my day. I needed to laugh. I needed to hear this. And I would send these to all my HR peeps just so they could feel connected. And sometimes we just need to laugh. So that is my spiel. I tried to cram a whole lot of information in there as fast as possible. But if you have any other information that I can help with, feel free to reach out to me. Preferred's an amazing mental health, substance abuse organization that offers a ton of resources to our community. So please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Tracy. If you don't mind, can you stop sharing your screen?
Oh, yes, sorry.
And then also, if you can please put your contact information in the chat for anyone who's interested in that document or any additional information. We realize that we are going a bit longer than scheduled, but we definitely ask you all to spend at least another 10 minutes. We have Cynthia O'Connell coming up with an incredible presentation. I do believe that Tracy and Amanda and Dr. Carries have answered the majority of the questions that came in through registration. If you do have any additional questions, we'll take them at the very end, and please put them into the chat for either everyone or directly to myself or Ben. But I would now like to introduce Professor Cynthia O'Connell. Cynthia is recently retired from the position of Specialist Professor in the Educational Counseling Graduate Program at Monmouth University. She is currently the Clinical Coordinator, School Counseling and SAC Department of Speech Pathology, Educational Counseling and Leadership at Monmouth University. She has worked as a teacher, coach, school counselor, and director of counseling services K-12 in New Jersey for over 30 years. She's a certified yoga calm trainer and an RYT 200 yoga instructor. She works with children through adults in yoga and mindfulness techniques, meditation, and yoga calm. She has trained educators in New Jersey school districts and in Iceland, working directly with faculty and students. She created and facilitated an 8-week program at Brookdale with their GED students, 16 to 24 years old. She's also worked with the New Jersey Bar Association, facilitating the Mindfulness Lounge at their annual conference and presenting workshops on meditation. Cynthia received her training in mindfulness-based stress reduction at the Jefferson Myrna Bryant Integrative Medicine Center in Philadelphia. Cynthia, thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And, you know, speaking of thanking someone, I want each of you to take a moment and thank yourself, because gratitude is one of the foundational attitudes of mindfulness-based stress reduction. So I have to say that Tracy, you did everyone did a super job, but Tracy, what you're doing for everyone is just, I was just nodding my head smiling, so good for you. And the other thing that I want to just say is generosity is also a foundation of mindfulness. So it doesn't mean just I know everyone that's here today is generous in their giving, but are you generous to yourself? And I think that is one of the concerns right now, that we are giving so much that we just don't take a step back and support ourselves. So today, I am going to say to you that the only moment is now. If you are ruminating about the past and worrying about the future, you are not in the present moment. And right now, we do need to be present. because if you consider what is your problem right now, it may reflect a little bit better. So I'm going to teach you a few mindfulness techniques, and the first one is called stop. So you are on autopilot. You walk from your office to the kitchen. You can't remember what you went in there for. You send an email without an attachment. You put your purse, the pizza, on top of the roof of the car, and you drive away. These are times when we're on autopilot, and we're seeing this more and more, people making human mistakes. So when we do that, that's the time when we can sprinkle mindfulness into our day. It doesn't have to be a half hour. It can be a moment. So you stop, you pause, you just reset, and we reset with a diaphragmatic breath, which I'm actually going to teach. And I was so happy to hear Tracy say that, because breathing is so important right now. We know that this disease affects the lungs. So we want to be able to have that full capacity of breath. And then O is for observe. Observe what your emotions are. Observe what your body sensations are. Notice if your jaw is tight. That's the first place we show tension. Just notice what it's like on you. And then P is for proceed with the possibilities with an openness. So I teach, and I was just at Common Ground, which I'm sure most of you in Monmouth County are familiar with. And I teach people to respond instead of react. So if you use this stop thought, that you will now just respond in a different way. So let's talk about the breath. So this is a Hoberman sphere, and I've taught judges, lawyers, educators, probably 3,000 people how to breathe using this. So we are going to do a balancing breath, because I think everyone's been talking about finding the balance in our lives, in our work and in our play, and where is the play right now? So this breath is going to be an inhale to the count of 5 and an exhale to the count of 5. And you're going to inhale through your nose and you're going to exhale through your nose. Noses are for breathing, mouths are for eating and speaking. So we're going to inhale 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can even put your right hand on your heart, your left hand on your belly, 5, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, inhale 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. A balancing breath. There are so many breath techniques. I could be here for 3 hours teaching them. Breathing techniques to sleep, to calm down. This one is for balance, which I think is really important for us right now. So I'm going to do a guided meditation right now. It's going to be very short because we are out of time, but I'm going to ask you to make a connection with your hands. And by that, I mean, place them on your knees or your lap, put your feet solidly on the ground so you can actually feel the floor beneath your feet. Bring your shoulders up to your ears, let them roll down your back body. Excellent. You don't have to watch me, but you can if you want to. You could also think about putting the right hand on the heart and the left hand on the belly, just to be able to feel that breath, because we're going to do one of those balancing breaths right now. And inhale, feel that breath go all the way to your belly, and exhale. And again, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now send your mind to your jaw and just notice it. Notice if it's tense, if your teeth are clenched, if your mouth is dry. Just paying attention on purpose without judgment. And then on your next inhale, allow your jaw to release. And there's 3 ways you can do that. You can smile, you can roll your jaw around, and you can stick out your tongue. All of those release your jaw. And if you smiled again, good for you. And then we're going to take another breath. And then bring your shoulders up to your ears on your next breath, all the way up, and let them release down your back body. And maybe you didn't even realize that your shoulders were up by your ears to begin with. Let's do that one more time. Inhale them up. Exhale them down. I like to teach breathe, move, and then let's think about our thoughts. So I am going to say some affirmations, and you are going to repeat them after me, either silently or out loud. I am healthy. I can find peace in my day. I am resilient, and I am becoming a better version of myself. And now think of an affirmation that you have that is true to you alone. And just say that to yourself. And let's just take one more breath together. Big exhale. And then whenever you're ready, if your eyes were closed or your gaze was down, you can just lift that up. You can just do a great big overhead stretch. You can turn your palms out, paint the walls. We can do a whole yoga movement right in our seat. So thank you so much. That was very quick, but I also want to remind you that we should move every 30 minutes. And I know that you're thinking, how can I possibly do that? But you can stand up, go get a drink of water. Moving is so important to keep that mind-body connection. Thank you so much.
Cynthia, thank you. That was fabulous. And now we will all be nice and relaxed to continue our days.
Let's hope so.
Cynthia, someone questioned, I'm sorry, Dawn. Cynthia, someone was questioning the name of that ball that you were using.
Oh, so this is a Hoberman sphere, and like kids will call it a breathing ball. I mean, every time I speak at a conference, I bring this, whether I'm speaking to adults, children, doesn't matter. So usually people put this on their desk, and kids love it because just that movement alone is so calming. So I usually have a child, if I'm working with children, do the ball. But you can get it on Amazon where you can get anything.
Thank you.
Ben, did you have any other questions that came in?
Nope, I think we were covering it as we went through, so we should be good.
All right.